So good morning. And we're doing a series this morning that's going to focus on, I had it all set up, on the heart and the small intestines. Come on in. Yeah. Oh. And we're going to start in wide-kneed child's pose, facing the light. So move towards the window, and you take your knees as wide as they go, big toes touching, and then it's wide-kneed child's pose with a twist. And it's not like, lemon or lime. You want to come down onto your elbows, and then you're going to take your right arm and you're going to thread it behind your left arm and bring your shoulder down to the ground and your ear, and then stretch your left arm up to the sky. And then reach behind you, bending your elbow and kind of wrapping your arm around you. Beautiful. Then take a full inhale, and with your exhale, just sigh it out through your mouth. And so we're doing a whole class of yin yoga today. And yin yoga really only has its name because it's comparing this type of yoga to all the other heat-producing, sweaty, energetic, movement-full practices. Yin and yang always belong together. You can't have something that's entirely yin, and you can't have something that's entirely yang. And when you're describing things, it's a comparison. There are three principles to be in the poses. The first you've already done, which is you found the right shape for your unique body on this specific day. So we've learned, that we each have individual fingerprints unique to us. Thanks to such stellar programs as CSI, we also know that we have unique irises. But even our bones are unique. So if we were to take out your femur bones and line them up in a row, they'd all be special. And that's one bone of 200 and something. So if we think about all of our bones being unique, like how the rotation of the head of the bone is, and then how it fits into a specific socket, you're going to have a lot of variety. So that's where we really want to wake up to how our body works, how to find the right shape for our body. Once you've found that, the second principle is to become still on purpose. Thanks, Georgia. I'm just kidding. So making adjustments, fiddling around a little bit right when you come into the pose, great. But once you're there, see how much you can soften and become still. I think of it often like how when a lake gets really still, all of a sudden you can see all the way down to the bottom. And you can see the different marine life. You can see the plants underneath the water. And then the third principle is once you've become still in the unique shape that is yours, is to be willing to stay. And in a yin pose, it's around between usually 3 and 10 minutes. More often, it's about 5-ish. So come back up to center and switch your arms. Come up to your elbows, and then thread you can moan and groan. It's totally polite after a yin pose to be like, oh, yeah, so you can let it out. In case you didn't know what a moan or a groan was, that was one of them. Not sure which. And then thread your left arm behind your right elbow. Bring your left ear onto the ground. Maybe you need a little pillow. And then reach up and wrap your right arm back behind you. So take a couple moments to see and just notice if you remember your dreams this morning. One could argue that your dreams have more wise things to tell you than any news show you could watch. Especially that now that video can be faked. And then take a couple moments just to notice how your thinking is this morning. Observing how rather than what. And take a couple breaths to observe how you're feeling this morning, how your mood is, how your heart is. Then unwind your arms. Slide your knees together. Take your arms back behind you. And we can try it out as a group. Just coming into, sometimes referred to as embryo pose. Letting your shoulders relax, your knees squeeze together. Take a big inhale, and with your exhale, make some moany, groany noises just to feel it make a difference. Okay, you guys are new to this. That's cool. That's cool. And then inhale up and find your way into Sphinx. So lying on your mat, taking your arms shoulder distance apart, your elbows just slightly in front of your shoulders. If your lower back is fine, you can take your legs as wide as the yoga mat. If your lower back's really sensitive, you can keep your legs closer together. You can even come down so that your ribs are touching and slide your arms a little bit forward if your back's really sensitive. And you can take your legs really nice and wide if your lower back's loving it. You can let your shoulders fall up into your ears, or you can actually pull them down. Both have benefits. And if you're going to switch back and forth, it's fine, but you don't want to just keep going the whole time. So you kind of more like a minute or 2 minutes in one. And take a couple moments in the Sphinx pose to feel how your energy is. And you can, we can get all mystical and deep, and I can call it prana, and I can call it chi, or I can even go back to the Latin and call it anima. But the thing is, you got to figure out, how does it feel for you? How do you notice your own energy? I think of it as part of what the plant world has as well. So when you water a plant, you can actually see them nearly stand up into themselves and become more green. Or when they've been ignored, they get kind of droopy and low energy. But notice what helps your imagination. then take a couple of moments to notice your physical body. You'll find that often it's that one little thing that doesn't feel quite right or is hurting or that pulls all your attention. So actively see if you can also notice the parts of your body that you feel good in. So as I said, we're focusing on the heart and the small intestines. Now, in traditional Chinese medicine, whenever they're looking at a particular organ, it's never alone. As you know, your organs don't work like that. So it's always in pairs. And they do it in this way that they look at a more yin organ together with a more yang organ because they work kind of in harmony. And so the heart would be the yin organ, and the small intestines would be the yang organ. And the way they basically ascribe the yang organ to be more in charge of like the physical stuff, and the yin organ clearly is in charge of physical stuff and has a much bigger influence on the energy in your body, on your emotions, on the way you think, and even the choices you make in life, or how you feel socially, or how you feel in your work, your spiritual path. So when we're doing a yin class, we're going to focus mostly on the yin organ. But the coupling together always gives you a little bit of insight. Like it took a while for me to really start to okay, it's not, the heart isn't together with, I don't know what it would be coupled together with. What was the obvious choice? But with small intestines, it made me have to think a little bit, like, in what way is our heart related to digestion? The small intestines is this more finer refinement and sorting out and bringing to appropriate places. With your next inhale, engage your abdominals slightly and just lower yourself gently down to the ground. Slide your legs together and just wiggle your butt side to side. Again, moaning and groaning is fine. And you will feel often that making noise through your mouth can help feelings move through your body. There's a very dramatic version of talking, but even just sighing can change kind of how the emotion is in your body. It's dating me a little bit, but you might remember the scene from When Harry Met Sally, where they're on the phone just moaning, like, Well, it actually is a cathartic thing. All right, you're going to reach your right arm out to the right, coming straight out from your shoulder, palm facing down, and then turn your face in the opposite direction to the left, and hug your knees up to your chest on the left-hand side, coming up to the outside of your right thigh. You want to bring your knees as high as your hips. And then step with your left foot behind your right leg on the yoga mat. or on the floor works too. Beautiful. And then reach up to the ceiling with your left hand. And notice you can reach your arm like in obedience, or you can actually stretch your arm up so it nearly even stretches the skin on your chest. And then turn your palm and see if you can actually reach your hand back to your right hand and hold hands. Of course, you can flip over that hand to grab it, but you don't want to significantly lower your right arm. You might need a little pillow. Is that enough? And if you can't hold hands behind you, that's great. You're already in the pose, reaching for it. So you might find that you can't reach your hands, so you hang out there, and that's cool. You might find that maybe you're much closer than you thought you were. You may also find that you can actually bring your right foot onto the ground as well and help your hips twist even more open. So some people have the disposition, we could say, that they can twist so much that both of their feet are on the ground and the hips are on the ground while they hold hands behind their back, coming straight out from their shoulder blade. It's kind of funny how elusive it is. Like all of a sudden you have no idea where that hand is. And we're so confident about the physical stuff, huh? So even just having the pressure on your lower shoulder is the posture already. So in so many different places, whether we look at the physical stuff or poetry, stories, the heart plays such a central role to so many different stories. You know, there's just not, it's hard to find wonderful poems about the liver, but probably more likely than about the kidneys. There's something that we intuitively know about the importance of our heart. And when people say, listen to your heart, they're usually expecting you to come up with like a life choice or something. But you know that even, our irises are unique, our fingerprints, but even we have a unique heartbeat, which I think is pretty cool. You might notice that you don't think it's that cool anymore because the shoulder is kind of intense. So why don't you roll onto your belly, moan and groan a little bit, wiggle your right fingers, make sure they can still move. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Uncomfortable laughing is also okay. And then, we're going to do the other side because it'd just be weird if we didn't. Stretch your left arm out, palm facing the ground, turn your face in the opposite direction, hug your knees up to your chest, step onto the floor with your right foot behind your left leg, and then see if you can reach up, feel the lift and expansion, and reach back and see if you can hold hands behind your back. And maybe see if your other foot comes twisting happily to the ground as well. In traditional Chinese medicine, they credit the heart as being the source of all of our emotions. And what's wonderful is in that picture, there's a real emphasis that all emotions are not, they're free from being good or bad. So excessive happiness even, or excitement can be damaging to your body, can be damaging to your energy or your path. And grief is really, it becomes out of balance when it's too much or inappropriate, like there's nothing to be grieving about. But even anger has its kind of right use and time and place. That's often what can help people change habits they don't like. Or stand up for what's righteous. We should be angry at the injustices of our world. How archaic is it that a human being in one place has different rights than a human being in another place? So anger can be useful even. And in traditional Chinese medicine, the picture of how our organs work together with us isn't just about how the yin organ affects our emotion and our thinking and our spiritual path, but it's really how the whole system works together. So it's dynamic, like different strings in a web. If you pull one side, everything moves a little bit. And this shouldn't be news to you. You kind of know this intuitively already. Last night when I was falling asleep and thinking about what I wanted to teach this morning, I remembered having an experience that my heart was so shocked I actually ran out of the room and threw up. And it was purely like it was a physical reaction to an emotional blow. It wouldn't take very long for you to find plenty of examples in your own biography. We are undividable in ourselves. And then roll back onto your belly, moan and groan. Wiggle your fingers, make sure they still work. I promise your shoulders are going to be okay, Lena. Or I think they will. We can check in later. It's an intense posture. All right, you're going to come up first to your hands and knees. We're doing Anahata asana. It also has the not so sexy name as quarter dog. Not a hot dog, just a quarter dog. And so you come onto your hands and knees, and you're going to keep your hips over your knees, and you're going to slide your arms forward, coming into like a child's pose. So for some people, the forehead comes down into the ground. For other people, it can be the chin and the chest even. But it feels like that, bow down praying pose. And it's actually called Anahata asana, which directly translates from Sanskrit to be the heart posture. Nope. Bring your hips back. Okay, now there you go. You want to really feel this dropping down, like you feel your heart dropping towards the earth, like your armpits expanding. Yeah? So, a heart pose, like this is, for me, it's quite revealing. We have a posture called the heart pose, and what does it feel like? It feels like you're putting your head down in the sand and you're sticking your butt up in the air, right? But really, I think this gives us some insight into the nature of our heart. One of them is really being vulnerable. But the other is I don't know, maybe you've never been in love before, but most likely you maybe have. And so if you think about falling in love, we even naturally, we kind of smile and our energy rises when we think about it. But think about the other person. And think about like what really, like, do you know that moment, or do you that time perhaps that where you fell, where you got. And you might notice that it's not when they were like all dressed up and perfect and doing exactly the right thing. It was often when the other person had like showed some of their vulnerability or imperfections. Or, ultimate uniqueness. So when we think about the heart, it's kind of very easy for us to naturally slide into our own love story or lack thereof. Because in between love stories is a space that is harrowing, a space that can seem like it's excavating you and leaving kind of an empty pit. And one of the things that I realized, I was thinking about you yippies coming to Sweden, and I was remembering how it was for me when I first really spent time here. And what I received as a gift from Sweden was an experience of being more alone than I ever had been in my whole life. And it wasn't just about being alone from people. It was being like isolated in so many different ways, whether it was the language or just community that I hadn't connected with yet, or the joy of going out into the middle of the woods in the middle of winter and just feeling like I was the only person out there. Or this crazy thing where it gets so dark so early here. I remember having, profound walks back from the bus stop to Telavana. And I realized that the cool thing about being out alone in really dark, like I could listen to my headphones and I could dance my whole way home and nobody would see me. It was amazing. But it was both sides of this loneliness, of this feeling of isolation, but also this feeling that I discovered where the loneliness reaches over into a deep, rich experience of solitude. Where we're often kind of trying not to feel our own loneliness or our despair in between our love stories. It's actually a place where you meet yourself. And a place that is this real preparation for what comes. What's next? All right, let your hips slide back to your heels. Yeah, you can make some noises. You got the feels. Wiggle a little bit, moan and groan. Just do a little shoulder shake. And then to mix it up, roll up and turn to your left. And you're going to come into a straddle. You might want to sit with your hips slightly lifted, maybe if you have a nice fluffy sweater there. So instead of sitting behind your hips, you can roll your pelvis. It's like you're nearly falling off whatever elevation you're sitting on. And what that does is it adds like length to your hamstrings. And then you're going to, let's do it this way. We're going to twist a couple of times to your left. You can do a little scotch Scott move. And then bow over your beautiful left leg, letting your head hang or your chin hang. I know the way you can get when you have not had a drink of love. Your face hardens, your sweet muscles cramp. Children become concerned about a strange look that appears in your eyes, which even begins to worry your own mirror and nose. Squirrels and birds sense your sadness and call an important conference in a tall tree. They decide which secret code to chant to help your mind and soul. Even angels fear that brand of madness that arrays itself against the world and throws sharp stones and spears into the innocent and into oneself. Oh, I know the way you can get if you've not been drinking love. You might rip apart every sentence your friends and teachers say, looking for hidden clauses. You might weigh every word on a scale like a dead fish. You might pull out a ruler to measure from every angle in your darkness the beautiful dimensions of a heart you once trusted. I know the way you can get if you've not had a drink from love's hands. That is why all the great ones speak of the vital need to keep remembering God. So you will come to know and see him as being so playful and wanting to help. That is why Hafiz says, bring your cup near me, for all I care about is quenching your thirst for freedom. All a sane man can ever care about is giving love. He gave you the name already. It's Hafiz. A long dead poet. But not so white. Inhale up. Now, take a little moment. We're having a little yang moment. There's always that dot in the yin. You're going to take your hands either side of your left thigh and just see if you can lift up your foot. Good. Nice. And then another little ska dance over your other favorite leg. Oh my gosh. And then bow down. Let your head sink. Feel how much you can get your chest over your thigh so you really feel like you're dropping your left shoulder extra. See if you can drop your left shoulder more. Maybe bend your elbow a little bit. You got it. Soften into it rather than force it. When you find those feelings of wanting love overbearing, find a way to express more love. Because if we get consumed by, this question of, am I happy? And you start to look, you keep coming up with evidence why you aren't or why you are, but then constantly looking and measuring. instead of being. A lot of mystics and seers have said if you contemplate something with love, it will reveal itself to you. So, contemplating something with love and just wanting love are two very different kind of feelings. So you can start to actually use your will to keep shifting towards contemplating with love instead of thirsting for love. Inhale up. Bring your hands either side of your right thigh and do a little whoop. Nice. And then come to center. And today we're going to come into it pretty actively, and then we're going to soften more. So take your hands like little spiders, walk them forward, wiggle your butt back. Your behind should be behind you. Yeah? And then reach your chest forward. And then take your spiders for more of a walk. Do a little wiggle, do a reach, and then just lie on the ground. Or anywhere around there. Or even just mentally imagine it. You know, it's maybe 10 years ago now. But I was working on a blanket. I was crocheting a blanket. And it started off as a granny square. I don't know if you know what those are. They're about, yay big-ish, typically. And then I just started going and going and going. And it turned into a blanket for my sister and her now husband. And it was such a cool experience because it was a piece of work that I did probably over 6 months or so, where I would pick it up and I would crochet, just thinking about something or watching a movie or hanging out with a friend. And then I'd put it down, and a little bit later I'd pick it up again. And, so over 6 months, it became this big, beautiful blanket. And it was such a useful experience. You can have the same kind of experience when you make a quilt, where it's these little moments and a little bit of time. And then over a bigger piece of time, there it is, this big, beautiful gift. It gave me such confidence in being able to pick something up, put it down, and pick it up again later. And this idea of this really just little steps becoming fruitful, becoming of value. And I feel that's how we can be in ourselves as well, like especially with flexibility or with the yoga practice. You'll have like some goal that you're going for, like maybe lifting up in crow or doing a headstand. And then lo and behold, one day you're going to do it. And then there's a whole new set of things that you want to do. Like come out of that posture, huh? Take 10 more full deep breaths. Noticing if with every breath you can soften instead of harden. some of your friends are reaching 10. If you lost count, we can talk about this later. But I know there's ones in between 1 and 10 are pretty tricky. But notice how easy we get distracted from something so simple. So inhale up. Bring your hands about mid-thigh. Extend your legs through your heels. Flex your legs. And then see if you can lift it all up. Yeah. And then see if you can lift up and spin around. We're coming into a forward bend. So caterpillar pose. Again, you might have to have something underneath your buttocks. And just reminding ourselves, this is why it's called caterpillar pose. So we remember, oh yeah, it's yin yoga. So we want to practice it with softness and without force. Yeah? So see if your legs are relaxed. You can kind of tap them in. Yeah, jiggle, jiggle. Yep. And then first, lift up tall. Take out your spider hands. Walk your fingers forward. Wiggle your butt cheeks back. Reach your chest forward. This just helps your spine come into extension. We're going for a beautiful J-shaped spine. I know. We can talk about that more too. And then see where you get. And just see if you can keep your chest extended as much as possible. And then let your head start to drop. With the heart in traditional Chinese medicine, often a heart disorder, drastic heart disorder or disease, or when it's doing poorly, it reveals itself by the person having really disconnected from timing and appropriate timing. Like the examples one of the books gives is, if you're getting ready for work and you put on a bikini and you go to work, like that's not appropriate. It's a timing thing. If you're going to the beach, that makes a lot of sense. It's a pretty extreme example, but this idea of, being able to meet the world in how the world is meeting you. And with loneliness and with kind of heartbreak, we are so impatient with the timing. And it always seems to take just a little bit longer than you think it should. But there's this element to timing that you'll find makes all the difference. And this is at the right time, like the earth plays with you. Like, think about some chance encounters where you've impulsively wanted to go out for a walk or something. And like, there it is, you meet this person and they give you exactly what you needed and you didn't even know perhaps. And for me, that's a place when the earth is participating in my relationships. My friend Orlin talks about this being an earth date. And we want to start to wake up to what is met by this incredible place of being on earth. It's amazing that we all are in the same room together at the same time in Ytterjärna, Sweden. It wasn't something I could have imagined when I was a kid. But the earth brings us together so we can exchange the gifts we really have for each other. Now, inhale up, and we're going to do either a second set of caterpillar, or if it's okay for your body, we're going to come into another little yang moment, and we're going to come into plow. So you do the same pose, but with your feet over your head. And you may hold on to your lower back. If your toes don't touch the ground And sometimes it's like just first thing in the morning, they won't. You can bend your knees and bring your knees to your head. If your toes do touch the ground, you can actively reach with your heels and let your thighs reach up towards the ceiling. Use your hands to support your back if you'd like. You're also welcome to do another forward bend. We're going to stay in this pose for about 3 minutes, but if you need to come out of it earlier, listen to your body. I mean, it's pretty crazy because, you know, we hear these little mantras like, all you need is love. I just want to be loved. Oh, I just want to be loved. But really, you know, there's plenty of people out there loving you. But it's often not really like you wanted it, or not from who you wanted it. So we really got to kind of wake up to what lights us up the most is actually loving other people. What makes us feel the most incredible. We can also start to wake up that we all have such different ways of expressing love. But when we know that, and we go, aha, yeah. But when we're looking to find out if someone loves us, we just keep looking to see if they're expressing love the way we would express love. We often forget to look at and see how do they express love. And then roll down. Moan and groan a little bit. Wiggle around. And then come onto your back and hug your knees to your chest. Maybe lift up your face and kiss your knees. Thank you for getting you this far in life. And then see if you can, let's do a twisted root twist. So you're going to braid your right leg around your left leg. Maybe your toes come all the way around your calf, maybe not. And then you're going to put your left foot on the ground. You're going to lift up your butt, and you're going to slide your hips to the right and let your knees drop to the left and your gaze go back to the right. Take a full breath in, and with your exhale, just sigh out. You want to have your knees as high as your hips, and your left foot comes off the floor once you drop, most likely. You okay? Mm-hmm. That was my bone, not yours. You'll find it can be more passive to have your right hand palm facing down, a little bit lower than your shoulder. And that will help you kind of ground and let your right shoulder blade be heavy, or the right hand. What's amazing in this dynamic system of traditional Chinese medicine is that it's very clear that you can do things physically that will change your mind, move your feelings, change your energy. You might have experienced that already, just even this 1 week doing yoga, if that makes a difference. 4 days, yeah. But what's maybe a little less obvious to us is that dynamicism works in other directions as well. So you can work with the forces of your heart and change the way your physical body is. Or you can work with energy, or even your thinking, and affect your heart. You maybe have noticed that already. Abraham Lincoln once said, if you find someone that you don't really like, figure out a way to spend more time with them. Not our natural go-to. But this idea of the more you get to hear of a person's story, the more you meet a person, the more you'll actually grow to love them. It's a little easier than like. And again, don't believe me. Figure out if it's true for you. But just to first imagine that we have this kind of capacity starts to already create the possibility. Unwind your legs and rewind your legs the other way. So bring your left leg over your right, twist your foot maybe all the way around your calf, put your right foot on the ground, lift up your hips, slide your butt cheeks to the left. This makes it a more gentle twist. And then drop your knees to the right, letting your knees be as high as your hips. I think the hardest part about loneliness is to not let it kind of solidify and become hard, like solid. To find it as a place of opportunity rather than punishment. It's amazing because love really points us to the effectiveness, functionality, the power of the invisible. You don't have a finite amount of love to give. That makes no sense. If you were sharing potato chips, you got a bag full and that's it. But with love, you are the creative source of love. Even when it's hard, you have capacity to create more. This is our amazing gift as being human. What we get to choose in the freedom of our creativity. And then unwind your legs and come back to center and stretch your legs long. Maybe covering yourself with a blanket or a scarf. Feel the ground hold you. You can take your feet as wide as the mat, like you're about to do a snow angel or a sand angel. Palms open to receive, eyes closed and trusting. With your next inhale, invite your breath to the edges of your body. Wiggle your fingers and your toes, your face and your nose. Maybe stretch your arms out long over your head, reaching your hands and feet as far away from each other as you can. And then roll over onto your left hand side, hugging your knees to your chest. Feel how amazing you are. And then help yourself up into a comfortable seated position. Allow your hands to meet at heart center. Root down towards the ground so you can rise up tall. Let's close with one Om. Empty your breath. Take a deep inhale. Bring your prayer hands to your third eye. Invite the divine light. And as you bow forward together, we say, Namaste. And then make some noise. Yeah. So see how you feel in an hour, and then really evaluate. Do you love the yin yoga or what? Have a great day.